Well, I passed out because I couldn't stand the sight of blood. My father had a massive coronary on the bus and died on the bus. And he's sitting there with his eyes open, but dead in his seat. I've never seen anything like that before. So I actually sat down beside my father and told him it was okay, that I would call Mother and let her know. It was very hard.
Oh, Marvin, thank you for joining the show. For allowing us to, get a little bit, learn more a little bit about your story, where you started. So just kind of to give me and the audience a little bit of kind of who you are. Like, can you tell us about your early childhood?
Sure.
Where did you grow up?
Sure. I was born in Independence, Kansas. That is in the southeast part of the state of Kansas. And I was born into a family. My father was an accountant for Sinclair Oil Company. My mother was just a homemaker at home. I was the oldest of 3 children. I have a sister who is 3 years younger than me. And then I have a brother who had Down syndrome, okay? And he was born 3 years after that. So there's 3 of us kids. So I would say we were just a hardworking family. We liked to have gardens. My family did not travel very much early on, so we didn't do too many things except going to church. We were strong Lutherans, went to church every Sunday. In fact, my early school, I went to a Lutheran school from kindergarten through 8th grade. I then went from there to a high school in Independence, Kansas, and then went to junior college, okay? My youth was a lot of fun. We did a lot of things with the family. I would have to say that my first job was mowing grass. I mowed the neighbor's yard across the street. And my mother was one who would help me. I would put the lawnmower in the back end of the car and she would drive me to different lawns. Well, I did such a good job of doing yard work that I started my own little lawn mowing business. So I had about 7 yards that I took care of. And if you can imagine, I used little hand clippers to trim the edge of the sidewalks and the driveways. And of course, my mother then would also make sure I swept it off. Okay?
Did you guys have weed eaters back then, or
no weed eaters?
So you had to do it all by hand?
This is all by hand, okay?
And how old are you when you started this business?
I'd say I was probably 10 11, 12, in that age group.
Where do you think you got that entrepreneurship mindset? Since you said your dad was an accountant and your mom was a stay-at-home, was there someone else, like a role model that you looked up to, or someone close?
The answer is yes. The first person I actually worked for was the owner of a Sayers Hardware. So when I started mowing the grass, then my first job then was to work in a hardware store. So I became the clerk and just really enjoyed trying to figure out things. I know very little about woodworking, but I learned how to put stuff in certain spots. And then I became kind of one of the people where they liked me, and they'd come to me and I would help out. So during high school days, that's kind of what my first job was, okay? I also had a job, my mother helped me. I helped deliver the Wichita Eagle. They would bring the paper in and drop them off at the train depot, and we'd have to go there and pick them up. Well, we drove by car. So if you can imagine, I am in the back seat rolling the newspapers, and it's a pretty good sized paper, okay? Mm-hmm. We probably had 35 to maybe 40 stops that we had. So I would throw it out the window. But if I did not get it on the cement or where it needed to be, my mother stopped and said, you got to get out and get that paper. So I always learned that accuracy and doing it the right way is what we always did. So I still remember doing that. So now as I grew up, okay, into the high school age, I actually started to another job. I started working at a grocery store, okay? It's called Food Town in Independence, Kansas. And I really enjoyed working at Food Town. That's where I learned to become a stalker and I started as a sacker, and people love me. I just love to talk to people now. I really enjoyed that, and it's really helped me out in my career. So I probably learned that there at the grocery store more than any other place, okay? And mostly, so I'm a sacker most of the time, and then I was a stalker part of the time. And that's what it was before then I came to college. So that's kind of what that was in the early years. And of course, I was kind of shy during that time period. I did not date much, okay? But I was kind of the ones that was pretty smart. I was an A, B student during school, but I just enjoyed life, okay? And so that's kind of what kind of kid I was.
When you're growing up, like, what do you want to be? Like, are you like, oh, I want to be a police officer. I want to be a pharmacist in your case. I want to be entrepreneur. Like, were you in high school or like middle school? Like, what are you thinking? Like, what you want to do in your life?
Well, would you believe I wanted to be a doctor?
Doctor.
I felt like I really liked people, and so I thought that would be a good way to go. Well, I found that early on. I watched the films, Driver's Education, and they always had these accident films. Well, I passed out because I couldn't stand the sight of blood.
Oh, okay. So that was a big no-no.
That was a big no-no. I learned that from there, I did not want to be a doctor, okay? And so I decided, okay, why not go to college and study to be a pharmacist, okay? And I thought that might be a good way because then you could study the body, but then you could also work with people, okay? We had a situation, my father had some heart condition, okay? So I had I had 1 year of junior college in Independence Junior College, but then I decided I would come to KU, okay? And so we came to KU, and I just got married, but my dad came to visit us. He rode the bus because my mother stayed home to take care of my brother Charles. And this is the first year of college up here. And it turned out to be that my father had a massive coronary on the bus and died on the bus.
Oh, wow.
They called me from the bus depot, and I was at the pharmacy at that time. I owned my own pharmacy here. I can go into how I got to that too, but I came there and I had to get on the bus, and he's sitting there with his eyes open, but dead in his seat. I've never seen anything like that before, so and everybody behind him, they did not let off the bus. And the reason for that is they thought if it's a murder or something like that on the bus, they had to keep those people there.
All the witnesses.
So I actually sat down beside my father and told him it was okay, that I would call Mother and let her know that he passed away and that we loved him very much. And it was very hard to see your father in that situation. So basically I came off the bus and told him he had passed off natural causes and they could let the people off the bus. But I then had to figure out a way to call my mom. And of course, I brought a neighbor in and my aunt to come with her. And then I called Mother and told her that Dad had passed away. And that was very traumatic for me. Because then I realized, here's my mother. I may need to help support her. So if I'm going through pharmacy school, I could work maybe as a part-time aide or whatever in a pharmacy to help earn some money if I needed to for her. I did not really realize that my dad had already set up a nice situation for Mother with his retirement and stuff. He had just retired, okay, from Sinclair Oil Company, and that was a great thing. So my sister at this time was in a town called Brenham, Texas. She was a school teacher in a Lutheran school down there. So she was down there, and so I was up here in Lawrence. Just had married, and we had, I think, one child at that time period. And so that was a good thing. Probably I need to go back a little bit too before I got into my first job. I should tell you about my military experience. I'm in pharmacy school and enjoyed that. I had struggled a little bit in school, and what I need to go to Emporia. I actually did not pass a course. It was called Organic Chemistry, okay, OMA, and it's kind of a flunk out course at KU, and I did not pass that course, and I need to pass it to finish school of pharmacy. So, and before I'm thinking about that, this is when the draft come about, okay?
So this is like 1960s?
That's correct. I think it was 1969, I believe, is when it was, and it was on TV. So they had the drawing of the numbers. Well, Marvin got a number 15, which scared me to death because I did not know what would happen with that. I felt like I was going to be drafted right away. So my dad called me and says, Marvin, you need to join up with a reserve unit out of Independence, Kansas. And the draft board lady there, School of Pharmacy is 5 years. Well, she decided, no, every education is only 4 years. So too bad, Marvin. So basically, Dad says, okay, to save you from going to Vietnam, you need to sign up tonight at the Army Reserve Unit. Because if we did get your notice before anything else, then you would have to go, okay? I did decide that night to join the Army Reserve, and thank goodness I did. The very next day, I had my notice in the mail to go to the Army itself.
Oh, wow.
So I was lucky and got that. So would you believe I actually took my course in Emporia, Kansas that summer, and then immediately thereafter, I took the test to pass, but then I had to go ahead and sign up and go to basic training, which was in Fort Knox, Kentucky. Okay. And it was difficult for me. I'm colorblind. So many things, and of course I could do some of the physical exercises and stuff like that, but to me, I really felt strange in that, the sergeants are pretty rough on you. They make you do stupid things, okay? I thought marching's fine, this kind of thing, but still, let's be real, okay? But again, it's trying to get people to follow orders and this kind of, well, I didn't have trouble following orders, but they did not ship me out of there right away because I couldn't pass the colorblind test. Red and greens, I cannot tell.
Okay.
So believe it or not, some sergeant then says, okay, here's 3 pencils. Here's a blue one, a yellow one, and a red one. Well, that was easy. I could tell him what that was. It's just that if he puts red and green together, I couldn't distinguish. In other words, if it's shades, if you have a number 8 in the middle of that, I couldn't see that 8 at all.
Okay.
Well, he says, you're not colorblind enough. I'm going to pass you on. So he passed me on. So I'm now going to Fort Lee, Virginia. Okay. So they send me to Fort Lee, Virginia. Okay. And I'm trained in graves registration, how to identify dead bodies.
Oh, wow.
So that's what I was trained in. And here I'm going to pharmacy school. I could relate to that. So study the body was easy for me. Okay. And graves registration is just keeping track of where people are shipped to and this kind of thing, okay? And how to identify them through dental records or whatever, okay? And that's what I was trained in. So believe it or not, my unit, half of it was shipped off to Vietnam. I was sent home, okay, luckily, okay?
What was that?
Well, I was sent home because I was still in school, okay, and my father had passed away.
Oh, okay.
So I think they realized that they did not want to send me on to that. So I stayed in the reserves for 5 years, okay? And I was lucky because I actually trained and helped with physicals in Topeka, Kansas, and then worked at Stormont Vale Hospital in the pharmacy. So I became where I knew some of the doctors from Lawrence, from the unit up there, and it was real strange. The only thing I had in my pharmacy up there, I was the only pharmacist or somebody training to be with a couple doctors, and I was in charge of Tylenol and Sudafed. Sudafed is used as, for allergies and this kind of thing. So that's kind of my background there. The issue that happened to me, though, is that when I came back, they changed the curriculum of my pharmacy. I had to retake a course because they changed how it was done. So I had to take my 4th year again, and then my 5th year. And the 5th year, what it is, it's a rotation where you go to different pharmacies to find out if you like pharmacy retail or hospital. Okay?
I didn't know there was 2 different kinds.
There's different kinds. And there's different other kinds too. There's animals, like in veterinary type thing. But main thing for pharmacy is retail or hospital. Well, I like retail because the business aspect, because of what my background was. And then also, I just really enjoy the aspect of the people's bodies. Okay? So I graduated. When I came back from the military, before I stayed in the pharmacy school, I actually graduated, walked down the hill up at KU in 1971 with a degree to teach. Okay? And actually, I also had a job in Topeka, Kansas, working at Shawnee Heights. Shawnee Heights is a school district that I would have been a biology teacher and with a chemistry minor is what I graduated with. But I wanted my pharmacy degree, so I still worked at a retail store here in Lawrence. At that time period is called Rusty's IGA. Rusty's IGA was at 9th and Iowa, and that's where the Merck is right now. There's another store there. That's where I did my working as a sacker, and then working as I stocked shelves and this kind of thing. In fact, that's where I met my first wife. Would you believe?
She worked there too?
She didn't work there.
She was a
Her
customer.
mother came through, which will be that came through check stand number 3.
Oh, wow.
We know exactly where it is. And the day that she came through, I asked her if she would go on a date with me. And she said yes. Well, but I didn't get her name. So I did know her mother's name, and I looked at their check. And I got the phone number from their check, okay? Back then, put it in a drawer, wrote it down. Well, if you can imagine, her name was Karen, okay? It's spelled Karyn, and so I was pretty shy. So I didn't call her for 10 days.
Oh, wow.
Finally got the nerve up to call her and called her up, and her mother was listening, and so she didn't remember who I was. But her mother did, says, you need to go out with this guy. So believe it or not, we went out. I took her, a date we looked at the stars. I went to Potter's Lake of all places. And so, and in fact, we went to a study hall. She was going to KU.
Okay.
Okay, at that first year of school. And so I still remember that first date. And then she, believe it or not, I went to her house, and she fixed me deviled eggs and tomato soup, both of which I don't like.
Oh, wow.
So I ate. I pretended like I liked both of them, but that was my first date. We ended up dating. In fact, when I came back from my Army situation, when I was in Fort Lee, Virginia, I then finally got dismissed from there late, and this was after our unit was again. I was held back because of my color blindness.
Okay.
There was a gentleman with me, and he was going to Arizona, but we were on the same flight to Chicago. So I told him that please call my girlfriend. This was happening so fast, I hadn't even had time to call her. So he was supposed to call Karen and let her know that I was going to fly into Kansas City at midnight. Okay? And so I did not know if I'd see her or not. We had written letters back and forth. Well, she got her mother to drive her there. And so, believe it or not, she and her mother were both there to greet me that night.
Oh, wow.
And it was a very tearful reunion, so that was how we got back together. I have to tell you a real funny story on her. When we got back for Christmas, I think she was expecting a ring. She wanted me to propose to her.
Oh.
But I got her matching pajamas, and I thought that was the greatest thing, that we'd have matching pajamas. Well, they didn't go very well, so I had to return those.
Oh, okay.
But it's one of those kind of funny things. But
has she told you before, or had you guys talked about it, or how do you know she wanted the ring?
I didn't. I did not have a clue that she wanted a ring. I thought we were still needing to date, a little bit longer, and so she was more serious than what I thought of. And we had just sent, letters back and forth, because when we were in service, I told her she could date around and date other people, and she told me I could do the same, but of course you don't date in the service. And so I just had told her I loved her, and but just wasn't quite ready for that, so you just don't know. So we ended up getting married soon afterwards, though.
Once you came back?
After I came back.
And what was that like when you were because you said you didn't really travel that much when you were younger. So going to all these other states, pretty back to back, what was it like in Kentucky and West Virginia?
For me, it was, I missed being at home. It was scary. It was a new experience. I enjoyed being out there. You make the best of whatever your situation is. You just need to get through it. Okay, and that's kind of where I was. So I was glad to get home. I was glad to see her, and then we realized that we were really in love, and so we actually got married then. In 1971 was when we got married. So we are now currently have our first job, and I'll tell you about that too.
And you just graduated college as well that year, right?
Mm-hmm. I actually graduated from college, actually in 1973 was the year, okay? So we had gotten married in 71 when my first degree was then, but then I stayed back in college because I won
the pharmacy
I won the pharmacy degree. She was getting an education degree, so she actually got a degree to teach, okay? Mm-hmm. And so she would be a teacher in school, and it was very interesting for my job. They saw me working at Rusty's IGA, and I'd become basically so far up the chain that I was now head of the person who ran the courtesy booth. So I would take people's checks. I would call other people to come up and run registers. I was pretty high up. And the owner up there, it was a really nice guy. His name was Rusty. The store was named after him. And goodness, he had 3 stores in Lawrence here. and was just a good guy. He would have Christmas parties for all of his employees, and we'd come to them, and real fancy. And here I am with a wife and a young little boy, and he just treated us like kings, just really, really wonderful. So as things progressed, I'm now at the pharmacy. I am. They like me, and I got hired there. The main pharmacist, he was kind of a guy who was very demanding, okay? And then there was a guy by the name of Jim Yao, who was actually over the main store, and the other owner was quite elderly, and so Jim Yao bought him out, okay? So we're now at the store where I would be at 4th and Main, mm-hmm. And they had another pharmacist that was in part of that group by the name of Newton King, and he was at a second pharmacy that they had. So we had 2 pharmacies in Lawrence. The second one did some compounding. We didn't do so much compounding, but we had a lot of doctors in our building, and it was very, very busy. Well, it turns out then that one night I get a call, and we take emergency calls. There were no Walgreens in Lawrence at this time. A lot of the major stores were not here. This is going clear back to 1966. 66 is when I joined them and had come here. And so I got a call that the main pharmacist who hired me had a massive coronary and died. He was 47 years of age. So now I'm the oldest one here at this pharmacy, okay? And I had other clerks and stuff working with me, so we probably had 10 or 11 people that work, but I now am in charge. So I'm quite young. I'm just in my 20s. And the owner, which was his wife, says, "Would you mind continue running the pharmacy for me, okay, until I had some of the kids get a little bit older, okay?" So she wanted me to run the pharmacy until the kids got older, until they would graduate, okay? Mm-hmm. So I did. I said, "I'd be glad to do that for you." So now the pharmacy is building up. We're getting busier and busier. I loved being a pharmacist, and what I would find out is that if a person needed some help at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, I would go back to the pharmacy, help them out free of charge, and then get them taken care of. So anytime anybody go to the emergency room or whatever, we would take care of them.
Even after you guys were closed?
Even after we were closed.
You would go back, open the shop, and take care of the customer.
So we had deliveries. We delivered close to 40 to 50 stops a day.
Wow.
Okay. We actually had 3 pharmacists then. My son now graduates from pharmacy school. His name is Timothy, and he joins me. Okay. And that was a good stabilizing. So believe it or not, he worked with me for over 20 years.
Wow.
Okay.
And what is that like, having your son work with you in the same profession?
It was great. I really enjoyed it. On top of that, my wife, Karen, who was not, she tried working at a school system, but then found that some of the, whenever you're a substitute teacher is what she would be, the discipline was not that great.
Oh, okay.
So some of the kids would belittle, or speak out, yell, and she didn't like that. She liked discipline. Mm-hmm. So then I thought, we need to have her there. So we were into accepting Medicare on ostomy supplies. No one else in town did that. I learned to fit support hose. That's special hose for legs that swell. Oh. So I did all of that. My wife then also did breast prosthesis when breasts would be removed. So we got into a lot of different things that other places in Lawrence would not do.
And would someone come up with like like a plan for you guys, or how would you know like that what the market needed?
We would just know that by experiencing. Every time a customer would come to me and says, I can't find it in Lawrence, then we would go into it and start doing that. So that's how we started doing the support hose. We then also started using many supplies for surgery. If a person would have a knee surgery, they would want a certain type of thing for their leg. In other words, it's called a special bandage for that. We would stock that. So the doctors would send them over to us to get their supplies before their surgery. Believe it or not, we had horses that needed Coban wrap. It's a special wrap that generally used for adults when they have broken arms. But then they'd use it also for horses and different things. So we would stock it by the cases. And so people would buy a lot of these different products from us. So we became a specialty pharmacy is what we were, okay? Busy, extremely. So if you can imagine, we're delivering all these different supplies to different places. And then on top of that, we got into nursing home business, where you use a special cart, bubble pack system, where you have to bubble pack all of their medications so that it's given out, one item at a time. Mm-hmm. So we specialized in a lot of these things. So I would get into doing a lot of those kind of things. We found that other pharmacies then followed us. For example, Jeff Sigler would do the same thing. So he would kind of see what we're doing and also do it as well. Okay. Jayhawk Pharmacy did the same thing too. So all three of us were doing it the same thing for each of us. We would have individual, for example, I'd have customers at Brandon Woods. They would have customers at Brandon Woods. So then we'd have to deliver to them whenever they needed it, okay? And then they put it into their cart. So this went on. So if you can imagine, the way I built business was I was doing extended hours. I'd actually go out there at midnight for people, 2 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, wow.
So the police department would actually come out and they would make sure that if I would go in there to give me security, because I didn't know some of these people, because we didn't have a Walmart. We didn't have any of those kind of things there at this time. So I did that for quite a few years. So as years continued on and on, I actually developed a very strong rapport with all the physicians. A lot of nurses knew me by my voice, and so it was something that really got very well known. During this time period then, I got selected for, one of the things I enjoyed was we went to different conventions. There was in state of Kansas, there's a thing that came out, there's two things. Kansas Pharmaceutical Association was one of them, and I enjoyed going to all their meetings because we would get continuing education from those. Okay.
So you're constantly learning and trying to find new ways to increase your business and make sure that everyone's knowing the new, the new medicines that are coming out and stuff like that.
That's correct. On top of that, I joined a group called American College of Apothecaries. These people had meetings all over the United States. It's Coronado Island off of San Diego. Mm-hmm. We also went to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Well, if you can imagine, Marvin, getting there, my wife doesn't like to fly.
Oh, wow.
So we had to go by train. So we would get on the train and go, for example, to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. My wife and I, because I loved to see America, we get on a train and go to Chicago. From Chicago, we would go to Washington, D.C. From there, we go down to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And each time you go to a different location, we would get off and take a little tour. So in other words, we go to Chicago, we would get off the train and we would go, take a boat ride around the canals there. Get back on the train, go to Washington, D.C., get off there. You'd have 3 hours. You tour some of the Smithsonian stuff in Washington, D.C. Then you get back on the train, you go down to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And of course, I've never seen orange trees. Got to see them in Florida. It was just beautiful country just to see it. So my kids learned that was a really neat way to see America. So we got to see America that way. That's how I did that. And I really enjoyed, and that American College of Apothecaries, they made big major decisions for the government on what to cover, what some of our PBMs are the ones that paid us the money for that, as to what they were doing, how we could help them, figure things out. So we'd have meetings, and it was very, very, very entertaining and knowledgeable for me. So, but anyway, we did that for many, many years, and then I won several awards doing that. I was blessed to become, in 2015, I won a thing called, goodness, now I forget. I won the top pharmacist in the whole state of Kansas. And that was very, very neat. I had a thing where they had me come up to the School of Pharmacy, and I actually have a banner in the School of Pharmacy still there.
At KU?
At KU School of Pharmacy. It's got my name on it. And so they asked me to invite anybody I wanted to invite. And so we had 250 people came. They gave my wife roses. It was just neat. And it turned out to be that I have trained over 150 students over the years at the pharmacy. And what I do is have them come in, and they would spend a month with me in training. And so I just really enjoyed doing that.
So even when you had your own place, you were still giving back to
correct.
all the kids who wanted to do the same thing as you.
That's correct. One of the things I did win, I have a trophy. See that trophy sitting over there? Mm-hmm. It's a special trophy that was given to me. I was the only one in the state of Kansas that won that for that year.
Okay.
It's a very, very special award. So it's another one that I won. And it's all because just doing things for people, being involved in the community. In the community, I was on many, many boards. I was the president of my own congregation at church. I worked at Penthouse. That's a place that helps with, and people who cannot afford a lot of stuff. So I did that for 3 years. I just enjoyed helping people. In fact, I have to tell you another experience I had. I'm a member of the Breakfast Optimist Club. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I think you came there one time.
That's where we met.
That's where we met. Well, would you believe that in 2004, they asked me, okay, Marvin, we have some Russian pharmacists that are coming to America. They would like to know what American pharmacy is all about. Mm-hmm. Would you be willing to work with them and to show them around? And I said, sure. I thought it'd be a weekend. Well, it turned out to be 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So we had 11 pharmacists, 2 of which could not speak English. They had interpreters with them, and they were from all different parts of Russia. Okay? So they flew over here, and basically what I did was I set up a 3-week tour of all the pharmacies in this whole area.
Okay.
So I started with basically here. We started at the School of Pharmacy. They had to start in our pharmacy school. They went to classes.
Whoa.
for a couple days. Okay, and so the dean of the School of Pharmacy took them around, showed them all this kind of thing. Now, if you can imagine, they stayed at night in different people's houses, so we had to get housing for them. Okay, we had to have meals for them. Okay, and so they would go around. Okay, and so then every day, for example, then I took them on tours. In fact, I saw my itinerary. I started out with all the different pharmacies here in Lawrence. My pharmacy, the pharmacy at the hospital, and a couple others, Walgreens, we took them there. And just to see what a chain's like, what an independent's like, and what a hospital's like, okay? We took them also to a place called Burt Nash, which is a mental health, okay? So they did that. Now, all these places that they go to, they always thanked the people. They gave them gifts. Generally, it was a bottle of vodka.
Yeah.
Okay? That was their gift, if you can imagine. So then we went from there. I decided, let's take them to the legislature. So they were all recognized at the Kansas legislature. So I pulled some strings up there to get them in, and so they welcomed them to America, if you can imagine. So they really liked that. And so then that same day we did several other pharmacies in Topeka, okay? And so from there we went to a casino. They'd never been to a casino.
Was there a pharmacy in there, or was that just for fun?
That was for fun. So they went to a casino. So would you believe this one guy, this one Russian wanted to buy a bow and arrow. He'd never seen a bow and arrow before, so he had to get a bow and arrow. And of course, if you can imagine getting that on an airplane, that was quite interesting to go home. But anyway, he got a bow and arrow, and then from there we went to a little town called Hiawatha, Kansas. Okay? At Hiawatha, if you can imagine, we had a police escort. So, of course, these people, we had to have special, you're protecting them. So we had a police car in the front and the back, and of course, we're driving with 3 cars full of these Russian people, and we're driving basically our own cars, and so we went to a pharmacy up there, we went to their hospital. In the hospital, all the 4th graders made special, little welcome things for them. It was on the wall so they could see these welcoming pictures of these things. And so it was very interesting. Of course, just characters, is what 4th graders would do. But they got it. We had a special dinner up there with one of the pharmacists. Took them to an antique tractor place. So they got some antique tractors up there, and then they also saw, they got some wind turbines up there, those big turbine things up in Hiawatha, so that was great. We went...
You really gave them a 5-star experience then.
It was, and then we took them to a place in Fort Leavenworth. They had a huge pharmacy there as a mail order. For veterans, 5,000 prescriptions a day.
Wow.
So the hardest part was to get him on the base. I mean, Russians coming on American base, that was...
Was that even allowed back then?
That was allowed. They let it happen. And of course, we were in kind of a Cold War with them. Russians are people you did not want, around. So, but they realized that these are people visiting. So... And of course, we stayed right with them the entire time. You don't know if any of them were spies. Who knows? I then took them to Kansas City. We had KU Med was on the list. We actually took them to a company called McPike. One of the guys owned a wholesale house, so they wanted to see what a wholesale house where. The drugs come down a conveyor belt and it's going, this is going to Kansas City or this one's going to Lawrence or whatever. All the different boxes. See, the drugs are shipped to us.
Okay.
And so that was very interesting to them. And so, believe it or not, we took some of them on a social thing to our church, because religion is a different thing in their country. So we learned, and they talked very freely about that kind of thing. So we had a big ceremony for them, and of course they were here for 3 weeks, and then we got them sent off. And so it was such a tremendous thing that many of those even invited some of the people that they lived with even to their country.
Oh, wow.
Now, of course, I don't think I'd go there now.
Yeah.
But back then they would do that. This is 2001, 2002,
Okay. 2003.
So, but I put this all together for them. It was really, of course I had a lot of help with everything, carpooling and stuff, but I really enjoyed that kind of thing. So anyway, I basically ran my pharmacy then. We're getting close toward the end. Now, I'd have to say my wife, my first wife, I should probably tell you about that. Her name was Karen. She had come to work for us out there. And so as we progressed, she developed cancer in her breast. And what that was, her breasts got kind of hard, okay, very hard, not soft. So Marvin thought it was mastitis, that's inflammation of the breast. So we went to a doctor, and the doctor says, we need to see what's going on here. They came back and said that she had inflammatory breast cancer, and it had already spread from one to the other, okay? And so they wanted to do immediately, I'll never forget, because we actually had, they wanted us to start immediately on treatments. And we did not. We said, let's just wait till Monday. It's a Friday. So we went we came out of the hospital, and one of our church members was right there. And she says, I will take care of you. She must have, she says, if you need meals, I'll take care of meals, everything for you, because they knew I was working quite a bit, okay? And so we went to church that Sunday and prayed about it. And of course, we had a special prayer. And immediately people came up and, wanted to know what was going on. So we told them. In fact, that was a Sunday there's a special song called the Hallelujah Chorus. Which I only sang at Easter. Well, we sang that day. That was very hard to do, but we did it. But I'll never forget that this lady, Karen, went through chemo treatments and then had to have her breasts removed, okay? The doctor said, you basically have 10 years, is what he told us. She actually made 13 years. As we progressed through working with it, I went to every one of her treatments at the hospital. I was the kind of guy that I didn't want to miss any of her treatments. So here I am in her treatment room. They brought in a table, one of those tables, sliding tables. And so people would come to visit me there in the hospital. Drug companies, if they need to see something, they'd just come to the hospital and we would talk, and she would still get her treatment. And so she did pretty well, but as we progressed, many times the treatments would fail. So they called back and said, okay, we have to change drug. So we were in a situations where Medicare, just for one treatment, it would be basically $12,000.
Whoa.
Okay, so what would happen there is we would actually have Medicare would pay for part of it, and then we'd have to pay like $3,000 or something like that. Then after that, you're into the secondary part where it pays most of it, and it's a smaller fee. So for each treatment, we had to pay only $500. So she did fight it for 13 years. And toward the end there, and if you can imagine, we had 23 employees. So we were taking care of a lot of people.
Yeah, you guys were busy then.
We were extremely busy.
And how are you able to like handle work and while doing your wife's treatment and all that?
You just did it. You know, she was able to walk around at this point still, and so she would only come to work for maybe an hour. Our two boys are now growing up. They're in high school, doing pretty well. They were good students. And then Timothy graduated from School of Pharmacy and joined me. That's the second son. The first son ended up going into computer science. So he is actually a computer guy in Texas, doing well down there. He has different employees under him.
Okay. He also has his own company?
He works for a company. It's basically insurance and stuff for employees of the Army.
Okay.
So it's a federal type thing. So he's been doing that and is doing very, very well. He's one of the smart people down there with computers. So anyways, I progressed with my career. So I've won many awards, this kind of thing. And so, in fact, the one I was so proud of is called Bowl of Hygeia. It's a special award given out to the top pharmacists in each state by this company in the state of South Carolina. That's Donna coming in. So
Disturbing anything.
that's okay. So anyway, so then I'm getting close to basically with my career, okay, and I talked to my son Timothy. I wanted him to keep the pharmacy going. Okay, this is at corner of 4th and Main.
Yeah.
I had all these doctors in there and everything, and so Timothy says, "Dad," he says, I don't want to work so hard. I want my weekends free." So I realized I didn't have anybody to sell the pharmacy to. So I'd like to sell it to somebody that would be in retail. So we looked for somebody in Lawrence, and his name was Jeff Sigler. And so I talked to him about buying my pharmacy, and he liked the idea and thought it would be good because I basically was competing against him. So why not buy out your competitor? I was his strongest competitor, so he thought it'd be a good idea to buy me out. So that's what we sat down and started talking of doing that. Before this happens, and during that time period, still at the pharmacy, Karen passes away. She passed away in 2018. We've been married for 47 years, okay? And during that time period, I decided I'd try to work more. I didn't want to be at home. So now both kids are gone. Both are doing well. So I basically kept working at the pharmacy, doing what I thought was the thing to do. And so one day, another lady came into my life. Her name was Dee Beisel. The same oncologist across the street sent this lady to me. She's suffering from cancer, but doing pretty well, and she needed a cancer drug. And the doctor says, the only person in town that can find it for you is Marvin. Go find him. Well, little we know, she was a matchmaker, because when Dee comes into me, I brought her into one of the rooms, counseling rooms, and I asked her, okay, what's your birth date? She says, my birth date is 1/14 of 48. I says, it can't be. My birthday is 1/15 of 47.
Oh.
1 year apart. 1 year apart, one day. So I asked her, just crazy, what color's your car? Red. And well, my car's red. And so, number one, we worked on her cancer medication. I'm a person that I'll call the company, and if it's not available, because it was not available for a lot of them, but I told them that this person needed to have it, so they shipped me basically a 3-month supply.
Wow.
Okay.
So you had good relationships with all these people. Whenever you needed business or you needed something, they gave it to you.
Right.
You had it pretty much right there.
That's exactly right.
Wow.
In fact, we had one situation, we had to have one drug that came from England. Mm-hmm. And would you believe, we talked to the people in England to send it to us. And it turned out to be that this lady decided who it was for. She needed to have it. She had to have it. So I convinced these people in England to send us the medication, but they donated it to her if she would go ahead and send them money for dogs for blind people.
Wow.
So we sent them some stuff over for that. So she made a donation to that, and so she got her medication here free, basically.
Wow.
Yeah, so I had some power.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just talking to people. It's just talking to people. So anyway, to go into further story with now Dee Weissel was her name. I didn't have anybody to date, so we wanted to go to a Theater Lawrence. The lady was retiring from there, and we went to a lot of those shows and knew a lot of people. So she was a Hallmark and Cards employee and had her business here. She was the business person of the year in 2019. You probably see where a lot of times the Junior Achievement gives out awards to people like that. Well, she had won one of those awards.
Okay.
So it turned out to be that she decided, why don't we go together? So she called me up and asked me for a date. Well, I decided, okay, I'll take her out to eat. That way I was first, okay? So we went out together and went to that show, okay? And we started dating. She lived here. She lived just down the hall.
Wow.
On the right side. In 107 is what her number. This is 109, okay? And so it turned out to be that her cancer started getting worse, and one time at Christmas time, it was on the 20th of December, she got real sick. So I says, and then we were just dating. I says, we need to go to the emergency room. So I took her to the emergency room, and the doctor says, you have a blockage in your colon. We need to do an ostomy for you immediately. She was scared to death because, and that's one of the things, I don't know, do you know what an ostomy is? An ostomy is where they put a hole inside you so that your feces and stuff can come out into a bag.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that.
Okay, there is a urostomy and a colostomy. Urostomy is for urine. Colostomy is for the bags with your fecal material comes out.
Okay.
Okay, it's for your large intestine. He had to do that immediately. Well, she's scared to death. Okay, and so they put it right on where her stomach is. So when she wakes up, she now has a bag. Well, it turns out to be that Marvin sold those bags. We're one of the few pharmacies in town that actually even carried the bags. They're called Hollister bags, and they're made by Squibb. Different companies make them. So I kind of became in charge of what her supplies were. We had the visiting nurses come in to teach her to do that. But again, it was very hard to do. In other words, it's something where, you just have to work with it, that type thing. Without going into too much detail on that, hers was kind of complicated, okay? So I did help her with that. And it turned out to be that we fell in love. Okay? So we made a decision. We decided, Dee says, okay, if I get worse and my cancer is getting worse, we shouldn't get married. If we are getting better, then I think let's just get married. And we'll live. She wanted me to live here. I had another house in town that my family had come down here from Texas. They decided to put in a walk-in shower for me, okay, and also a second bedroom also set up. So in other words, I could live there, okay. Well, it turns out to be that her cancer came back and it was worse. We decided, there's no reason to do that. Why shouldn't we just go ahead and get married? Okay? So she had a friend help her make a dress. We decided to make it funny. We decided to make it a 60s, 70s wedding. We walked down the aisle to go into the chapel, going to get married. And she knew a lot of people. I knew a lot of people. Well, the church only held 230 people. We had about 240.
Oh, wow.
And so we had to have our reception at the DoubleTree and this kind of thing. So we got married in May. This is 2024, okay?
Okay.
And so it had been about 3 years since Karen had passed away, or actually more than that. Karen passed away in 2018. So it was about 5 years or whatever. So anyway, we got married and we're together. We're now living over here at 107. Okay? As we progress, several times, Dee, I had trouble getting her up out of bed. She's getting worse. In her chair, she would slide out of her chair. So I would call, and also I had to cook. I didn't know how to cook. Okay, now on top of everything else, I'm trying to do the pharmacy and I'm trying to retire, okay? So actually, during this time period, I would call for help. And so I called Donna, who lived here, to come over to help me. So she'd help me with the oven, to start the oven. I didn't know how to set a timer on the oven. So
really?
I didn't know how to do that. Well, each oven's different. So I didn't know how to do that, or even cook anything. I didn't know how to make a roast. So she would come over and help me with that kind of a thing. So teach me basically what I need to know. So anyway, Dee over there then progresses, and basically we have a retirement party for me. I actually, in 2023, I actually sold my pharmacy. This is all going on, if you can imagine. Sold my pharmacy, and we had a big reception for me, a celebration. So we enjoyed that. We had a lot of people come to that. And that was at our church. And then it's amazing because then Dee then starts getting worse, okay? And so she basically gets to the point where we end up going to the hospital with her, and that's where I pulled my left leg, because I'm bone on bone in my legs now.
Oh, wow.
Just from all the standing and stuff like that. So I'm using a cane. Had to use a walker for a while. But I pulled this leg right here. So they'd wheel me up to see her at the hospital, okay? And so she was in rehab for a while, Dee was. And then she tells me, Marvin, she says, if I die, there are 3 women that you do not want to date in the building, but there are 2 others that you might consider, okay, dating. Well, then Dee does pass away. She passes away in January of 2025.
Okay, last year then.
Last year, she passed away. So I was heartbroken. Now I've lost 2 wives to cancer. So we had a big funeral for her, and she is buried in Topeka. We took flowers to her this year, both wives. And so I then did not basically date anybody for a while. And so now pharmacy is done. I'm retired, and so I enjoyed still working with the pharmacy itself, and happy most of the employees are working at the previous pharmacy site now, because he moved it downtown. And the reason he did that is because the building itself where I was at is now a daycare. They're creating a daycare there. But I was 50 years at that one building.
Wow.
All in that same place. So so basically my grandson, Caleb, young one, I had him one day, and he says, "Grandpa, I think you need to get a date with somebody." I says, "Well, who should I date?" And he says, "I think you need to date Donna." And I says, "Why do I need to date Donna?" She says, "Well, I think she likes vegetables, and I think you would have fun doing that with her." And I says, "Where should I take her?" And he says, "You should take her to Smoothie King." I didn't even know what Smoothie King is. Do you know what Smoothie King is? It's got some drinks there, and so, believe it or not, we went there.
That was your first date?
My first date was at Smoothie King with Donna. Okay. And so we enjoyed that. But what was funny was when we were sitting there drinking our drink, this soft mood music comes on the music. So we got up and started dancing. Dancing at Smoothie King, okay? And so it turned out to be there was 3 college kids that were there, and they had put on the soft music for us. So I went and tipped them each $5, if you can imagine. So it was quite a night. So to progress further, Donna and I fell in love. And so we decided I had to propose, okay? So I actually then went back to Smoothie King and told him, I'd like to bring her back here and ask her to marry me. So I got a pillow underneath the bench over there and went back, and I asked to have all 3 of the other kids that were there before. We had one college student, another one that was leaving town from Arkansas, I was a college student, and then a high school student, okay? I'd like to have all 3 of those back. And this was probably 3 months or whatever after that kind of thing. And so we went back there. Sure enough, I got to propose to her. Tried to get on my knees. She says, "No, you don't have to do that." But she did say yes. And would you believe the high school kid was there? He was holding people back. They were outside watching what was going on the inside.
Really?
Yeah. So I proposed to her at Smoothie King, and she said yes. And it was just great. We really enjoyed that. We had a wonderful wedding in December the 12th. And so now I just moved down the hall to this place right now. And so we have our other place at the other house. We don't know if we're going to rent it or sell it. But anyway, I'm very happily here living. So
well, that's quite the story.
Quite a story.
Quite the story, and a lot. You've been through a lot. It seems like.
Been through a lot
throughout the whole years, but you still stood tall and kept pushing forward. I think that's what's the most exciting part about your story. That even though you're getting hit with the loss of your father, and then having to redo like 2 years of school, and then going through all this stuff of losing your wives and going to basic military, I think it shows that you just persevered through it all.
That's correct.
I don't know, even myself and maybe like people in my generation, I think we just need to keep thinking that, like, we think that it's hard, but I think we just need to keep pushing forward and it'll be all right.
That is exactly right. That's exactly right.
It seems like it worked out pretty well for you.
It did. And what you realize, for example, both of the wives, I took care of them until they passed away. So I'm very faithful, and in your marriages, and you just do the right thing. And I learned that God doesn't put, He won't let it be so strong that you can't handle it, and it's really special. So very, very special in your life. So.
Well, I appreciate you for sharing your story.
Well, you're welcome.
And I don't know, maybe we can kind of apply some of the life lessons that you've taught us today into our own lives.
Well, I hope people can do that. I did things when you work with people and you take care of people, you do it because you care about them, and that's what I do. So very, very good. So.
Well, thank you.
I enjoyed this.
Me too.
You do a good job.